Hello everyone, welcome to our AI adoption in charities, tools, policies, and the best practice. This session is going to be hosted by Dandelion AI, and we at Qlic are delighted to bring it to our charity network. My name is Laura, and I'm from Qlic. We're passionate about charities with the right technology to deliver greater impact, and today's topic is quite timely for that.
So, just as we just heard, we are going to run through today, firstly, how charities are using AI, and then we'll look at what good governance looks like. The real focus around today is around that governance and AI adoption. And then we will finish at the end with a wrap up, and we've got about 10 minutes to answer your questions. So please do note those down as we go along. I'm Caroline. I work full-time training predominantly charities, and I do work with businesses and organisations as well on AI. So my focus is on helping organisations adopt low-cost and no-cost AI tools. I spend most of my time working with things like ChatGPT or Microsoft 365 Copilot. And my background is I most recently, before I started working full-time for my business, worked for a charity. I was a director of engagement, so I looked after marketing, fundraising, business development, and product development. And like many charities, we were always super busy, and I joined in COVID. So we spent a lot of time firefighting and trying to rebuild income, look at our different projects, make sure we were obviously delivering against our purpose. And at that point, I realised that AI tools could have made a real difference to my teams and really helped them save time and take away some of that busy work, which would let them really use their expertise. And so hence I now spend my time working out how to make AI tools work for charities and businesses. So let's start by finding out a little bit about you all. I've got two Slido polls. I'm going to ask one question, I'll flip back to explain it, and then we'll ask another one. It just helps me tailor the content for today. And my first question is going to be, where are you on your AI journey? Now, this is you personally, not your organisation. We'll come on to that in a sec. Now, I know no one fits in boxes, but for my sake, we are going to have to pick one. So have I got any skeptics on the call? Some of my favourites, not a fan of AI or tech in general, may well have given it a try and it didn't work. Then we've got our experimenters. So you've had a go, you're keen to, and you might be using it for certain tasks. You're probably working with free accounts. Our implementers, regularly using it for one or more tasks, would like to know more, might be paying. And our champions, regular users saving hours every week, advanced knowledge and prompting skills. That is great to see. We have a real mix. I can see we've got a few AI champions on the call, which is absolutely brilliant. And as we go through, please do feel free to add any tips or thoughts into the chat. One of the great things about AI tools is learning from each other. So again, really good to share your thoughts. So our next question is going to be around where your organisation is at. So we've got 4 categories. So are they at the informal stage? So basically people are independently using AI tools like ChatGPT to solve problems. There's not any formal oversight, but we know some of it's going on. Then we've got organisations that are experimenting. So leadership's recognised AI potential, and they are encouraging basically experimentation, often concentrated in 1 or 2 teams. Controlled, there's a formal AI policy in place, and things like approved tools are defined, and ethics and data security are looking at. And the last one is planned. So you've got an AI adoption roadmap in place, and you're looking at which tools to use, what the business goals are, you're training staff along those lines. So what we can see here is the vast majority are using AI informally, which basically means that we know people are using it. It's not kind of encouraged or discouraged probably, and people are having an experiment. And then the next big category are looking at kind of leadership team have started to put a plan in place, and they are starting to look at where that road might go. We're actually got around 5% who've got control, so that AI policy in place, and 4% who've got that planned approach. Well, that's fantastic to see that some of you already have that planned approach in place. And for the majority of you, particularly for you in the informal and experimenter category, a lot of what we're going to look at over this session is how we can start to put in place some of those things that will help support a more controlled and a more planned adoption. So let's have a little bit of a look about how charities in general are using AI. As I say, please do share your personal experiences in the chat. It really brings it to life for everyone. Here's the data from the latest Charity Digital Skills Report in terms of charity adoption. What we've seen is that there has been another growth. So we're at 61% of charities saying they were using AI in 2024, and that's grown to 76% in 2025. And what's interesting is when you start and looking at the figures behind that. So we've got around 2% in the area of strategic use. So, i.e., have got plans in place and are really kind of going forward in that area. We've got 23% in our active user category. So again, they've probably moved away from that informal use to that much more planned use. But where the majority of charities are, just as we saw within our group today, are at that 51% in terms of exploring AI use. And we see that very much across all organisations. So the latest government figures show that businesses report about 20% say they are actively using one or more AI tool. So very similarly, they've got that kind of around a fifth are actively using AI. But the reality is we know it's much higher than that when you factor in informal AI use. And how is AI being used? Again, these are the figures from the Charity Digital Skills Report. Certainly from the charities I speak to, they are using AI regularly to help with writing things. So the marketing and comms teams are using it to assist with drafting. One that always makes me smile was telling me that they wrote very long emails, so they use AI regularly to summarise those emails into something a little bit shorter for everyone. I know, which we'll move on to in a sec, that it's definitely being used as part of drafting funding bids. And I think what we'll talk about is it makes a lot of difference how you approach using AI. So although it is being regularly used, how well it is being used and how effectively it's being used varies greatly. Reporting is another area I hear about a lot from charities. We all know that what comes with funding is usually needing to report back to that funder against specific objectives to ensure you've met those criteria, again, helping with that side of things as well. This very much mirrors how people in general are using AI tools. The latest report from ChatGPT had top two uses, as one was assistance with writing, which would absolutely mirror this. And the second one was knowledge and information search. So one of the starting uses of AI tools is definitely around, I like to call it fancy Google, but more properly, it's about context-rich search. So it's being able to explain more what you want and get better information back. And that is often where organisations are starting. And how it's used really does matter. So I've put up on screen the statement from National Lottery, Community Fund, and this very much mirrors where we're at in terms of how AI tools are used. The challenge with AI is if the AI tool is as good as the person using it. And AI tools are only there to assist you and not replace you. And the challenge is lots of people can type things into Qlic AI and get a reasonable, what appears initially a reasonable answer. But the problem is what you're getting is very average answers. And what you're not getting is things that accurately capture your organisation's personality, the unique stories that you need to tell, and that really bring to life what you do. From our point of view, we talk about treating AI as your assistant, and just as a rough guide, always thinking that it should only be doing around 50% of that task. You need to be briefing it well. We're not looking at prompting in detail today, but that is one of the key skills of AI use. And then you need to be checking its work. And then you still need to be editing it and inputting it. But if it's saving you around 50% of your time on a task, that is a massive win and gives you more time to work on those important tasks related to your organisational purpose. So, charity use is still at very kind of early stage. We're just getting into the early majority in terms of adoption. And for the majority, it's being used to help with writing tasks. So that might be funding bids, that might be writing reports, both internal and external, writing updates for trustees, or equally writing comms or newsletters or social media posts. And in all of those tasks, it should only be assisting. If it's doing more than 50%, it's probably going to feel pretty robotic from that side of it. And then increasingly, it's being used to help with kind of knowledge search, research tasks, and that element of it. And then equally, I've seen a few AI note takers pop up. We're seeing it help out with administration tasks as well. And if you have some of the tools, I know I certainly have charities who are using it to help streamline and prioritize email and some things in that area. Again, only doing 50% of the task. So let's look at what good governance looks like. We need to approach AI in an ethical way, and there are 5 broadly pillars of AI ethics. Now, these do vary. I can tell you that Microsoft have a slightly different version to IBM and some of the other big tech giants out of there. But the principles sit similarly across all. And as charities looking to formalise and progress your AI adoption, these give you a good starting point of kind of the essential things to embed into your AI policy, embed into how you're selecting tools, embed how you're putting AI out there to your teams. First principle of ethical AI use is accountability, and this one is absolutely vital. What does accountability mean? It means you are responsible for what the AI tool produces. And there's a reality that that's both legally correct and also very important to help protect your charity and your organisation and make sure you don't lose your unique kind of personalities and how you communicate. Primarily, also, what we have to remember is AI tools can hallucinate, which means they are making stuff up. So whenever you're using them, you must make sure that you are checking facts and accountable for the output. The next of those pillars is around transparency. Now, it's really important if you are going to use AI tools within your organisation that firstly, you're open about how they're being used, both internally and obviously externally where relevant. The funny thing, because AI use has grown often organically, sometimes people are quite nervous about talking about how they are using it, whereas in fact, we want the opposite. We want to foster a culture where people are open, they share what works, and also that senior teams are aware of how AI is being used so you can identify any risks and mitigate those. Going alongside that, it's important to understand how these AI tools work, because without that understanding, there's a lot of risk in terms of using them. For example, common AI tools, things like ChatGPT or Microsoft 365 Copilot, are something called large language models. And basically, they're trained on big data sets. And from within those data sets, they learn patterns using statistical analysis. And that's how they generate their answers. As soon as you realise what they're doing is working with patterns and looking at what the right answer potentially is from that pattern, you realise that they're not grounded in fact the same way, hopefully, another human would be, and that helps you use them in a safer way. The next of our pillars is around fairness and bias. Now, as I've just mentioned, these AI tools are trained off vast data sets, and the majority of that data, a lot of it has come from the internet. That means that's human data, and unfortunately, as we all know, humans are inherently biased. And therefore, the data that's being pulled back to you runs the risk of reflecting these unconscious biases. There's other challenges as well, like, for example, these tools overweight what you tell them. They want you to use them, and they're very likely to agree with you. And again, that can lead to issues because the tool says what you've just done is great, but you asked it, was this good? And its answer is yes. Instead, you could have asked it to critique it, develop it, what are weaknesses, and you'd get a much better or helpful answer. Next of our pillars is a very important one, which is around privacy and data protection. We need to be incredibly cautious about the data we share, and if you don't currently have an AI policy, you need to make sure that everyone is aware of what they are and aren't allowed to include within AI tools, particularly when it comes to any personal data and that side of it. In terms of GDPR or data protection regulations, there are no separate rules. The exact same rules apply to AI. So you really need to know where data is going and what people might be putting into tools. And the last of them is safety and security. Depending which tools you're using, you need to make sure that they have good passwords in place. You're putting in place things like multi-factor authentication. And it's why we're always delighted to do these webinars with IT companies and companies like Qlic, who are being really proactive about these AI space, and I'm sure are helping their clients manage all of these things. And these are 5 areas you need to think about embedding into your AI policy. Another aspect in terms of ethics to consider is the environmental implications of AI use. We've had some stats relatively recently released about the environmental impact of an individual prompt. And the reality is, for an individual prompt, it is tiny. But the challenge is, for ChatGPT alone, ChatGPT receives 2.5 billion prompts every single day. So even a tiny individual implication multiplies up very quickly when it comes to environmental impact. And it's just important that we remember this technology isn't free and that we need to be aware that we're using it responsibly. Some of the, it tends to be a business rather than a charity thing that I work with, are now obviously stating this within their policies and looking at offsetting it and just making sure that they really are ensuring that they're aware of the impact and doing something about it. So, what does responsible AI use look like? Well, lots of you are at that stage of using AI informally, and this is what kind of best practice looks like around an AI governance framework. So 3 aspects to it. First of it is your AI policy. We'll talk a little bit later about different elements to include within an AI policy. That said, I have come across a fair few organisations that have an AI policy without training. You actually, to mitigate the risk, need both together. So you need to show people the skills to use these tools, but also help them understand how the tools work, what the risks are, explain the limitations of the tools. For example, there's a risk of out-of-date information because these tools are trained to a point in time. They can search online for more current information. But embedding AI policy with training is an absolute key mitigation around AI use. The next one is procurement. Now, as I mentioned, my focus is on fairly straightforward AI tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. There are many others in this category as well. And you need to look at selecting the right tool for your organisation. And we'll look in a sec at the framework, we call it what makes a suitable AI tool, because people are not always aware where their data is going, what privacy settings are available. Equally, looking at cost and, really important things. All charities are tight in terms of budget. So if you are going to make an investment in a tool, will you get an ROI, which makes it worthwhile, and will it allow you spend more time delivering the core purpose for your charity? Now, if you are going to look at putting personal data into AI tools, then best practice here is a data protection impact assessment. So that's a DPIA. And that is kind of similar to kind of all GDPR and those different aspects of it. The exact same rules apply. So how do we make sure that AI tools are suitable? Well, what does suitable stand for a start? So S is security, and its focus is around security and data protection. I've just put up on screen some of the different things we look at. That's just a comparison for ChatGPT and Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's two versions of Copilot. There's a work one and a personal one, and they are different from that point of view. So the first thing it's really important to know is what account type do you have? Where is your data going? Is your data being used to train the model? Have you got enterprise or basic security? And where's that data being hosted? Now, T is a tenant. Tenant just means, for example, it's your bit of the cloud that Microsoft have for you. And then also, if you are going to be doing anything that might involve personal data, you need something called a DPA, which is a data processing addendum. And there's only certain tools where that's even an option. As I say, if you are going to work with personal data, you need to speak to your data protection lead and check you've done the right risk assessments and that you have those necessary permissions and reasons for processing in place. So S, the big one, security and data protection. U is about usability. It's really important that these tools are easy to use and that your team is able to work with them. I is integration. Be really careful when you pick your AI tool that it integrates with your other IT systems and processes. Might be a personal frustration, but I've certainly worked many places where things don't talk to each other and you have to enter stuff in different places. So when you think about adopting an AI tool, think about, does it work within my environment? So for example, if you are using Google Workspaces, Gemini is Google's AI tool and that will integrate into that environment. T is testing. Once you know why you want to use AI, you need to test it and check it does it. Firstly, check it does it better than a human can do it, but also test that it does it well against other similar AI tools and make sure it's actually right for the organisation. A is adoption, so put in metrics to measure use, and also it helps you consider whether you should continue to pay for that tool, which takes me to B, which is budget. So is there budget available? And if there is, does it show a good kind of value for spending those limited funds? For example, if it helps you save 50% of time on a task, it helps you improve the quality of your work, you can usually make a fairly good case for why it's needed. L is longevity. I've put up big tools, but there are literally thousands out there now. Check that they have roadmaps, that they will keep changing, keep being updated. AI is changing at pace. I actually don't think it's very helpful for all the business users and charity users, but you need to check if you're picking something not one of the big ones that they're going to keep pace. And E is ethics. Check you're happy with the ethics of the organisation that the tool is coming from. If you're an environmental charity or you have a big commitment to sustainability, have a look at what their policy is in that area and the work that they are doing. And then thinking about your AI policy very practically, we look at embedding our pillars of AI use. So those 5 ethical pillars, so accountability, transparency, fairness and bias, data protection and data privacy and security into our AI policy. And the first thing we include in our AI policy around the purpose and philosophy. What's the reason you're adopting AI as an organisation? And we'll talk a bit more about adoption in a sec. And actually, it's really important that we ground AI adoption in why. Why do you want to use it? What difference is it going to make? What's the purpose of using this technology? Key area, this one is accountability. But obviously the AI is just a tool, it's not a replacement for people. We'll talk a little bit more about the people side of AI adoption in a minute, but it's so key to remember actually using AI well as an organisation is really about change and helping people adapt to different ways of working. And it's your people that will use the tool and be able to use it well. And there is some nervousness out there about people getting replaced. Now, I always say I work with AI tools day in, day out. I can't see them replacing any people. They're a massive help. My goodness, they lack some of that critical thinking and judgment that I would hope to see in a team. Third area is setting out around transparency. So what behaviours you want to encourage internally about sharing how AI is being used, but also increasingly thinking about external transparency. We saw the National Lottery Community Fund earlier, and what we are starting to see is organisations publicly sharing how they are or actually are not using AI in different areas of their work. That isn't commonplace yet, but it will come at some point. Sections around highlighting how you're only going to mitigate or consider the risks around AI tools and fairness and bias. Mitigation of that risk can be as simple as obviously trusting people to be accountable and to check for it. I work with charities who work with refugees or different communities, and these things become really important because we don't want anything sneaking in which could be skewed from that side. Data and privacy, you don't want your AI policy to replace your other policies. You've hopefully already got your data protection policy in place and things like plans for how long you're going to retain data. So again, you need to reference this. You need to reference how you're happy for data to be used within AI as part of that. Often within AI policies, as part of it, we make a commitment to training and support, making sure the team have access, because to be able to do some of these things, you need a level of knowledge. So you need to know that AI hallucinates. You need to know that AI can be biased. You need to understand some of the ethical principles associated with it. We've mentioned the suitable framework that we use to select our AI tools. Well, within your policy, you probably need to consider which tools you're happy for your teams to use and what's the right fit for your organisation and charity. And why it's important to have approved tools is you need to make sure those checks have been made, that that tool genuinely is suitable. You know where that information is stored. You know if that information is being used for training. And that takes me into the world of process. So ideally within that AI policy, you want a process for getting new tools approved so that they can go through that checking process. We're not looking to constrain innovation. In fact, we're hopefully encouraging people to think about how they can work better, faster. And the other part of that process is thinking about how they can raise concerns about AI. And that's where the technical use, it might be the ethics side of it. Improper use, again, sits as it should just mirror your disciplinary policy, but you just need to obviously highlight what you see as improper use. And then finally, because of the pace of AI, Unfortunately, a lot of people are reviewing their AI policies every 6 months, some even more frequent. So it might be that you decide that annually it will go to your trustees and get more frequently reviewed internally, for example. That's another key area to consider in your policy. So let's have a look at the approach for adopting AI in your charity. For me, AI adoption actually starts with people, not with tools, as to be honest, AI will only deliver impact when people are actually using it. And there is a second part to this quote, which talks about the importance of kind of senior leadership involvement. So what we're increasingly seeing is that where AI is successfully adopted, the senior team are kind of actively involved, encouraging it and engaged. I noticed when I read the Charity Digital Skills report that it was an area that people had flagged, that they didn't feel that currently leadership teams were really on top of AI and really understanding the potential in that side of it. So if any of you are from that part of the charity world, it's brilliant that you're joining us today and obviously are being very proactive about it. But AI use does need to start with people, and it needs to take ideally a process if you want to benefit from what it can offer. And these are some of the people challenges of AI adoption. And it is really interesting because I think we saw it right at the start where we looked at people and where they're at. We had skeptics and champions. And this is one of the things that fascinates me whenever I go into a new organisation and hear about the views on AI use. So we have everything from those who are already using it a lot, and their concerns when we look at formalising AI adoption are much more around whether you're going to take a tool away from them, because actually they've got used to using it. And then at the other end, and I still see this, which makes me a little bit sad, that there are people genuinely worried about losing their jobs. And they hear someone announce that we're going to do a project, we're going to look at how AI is used, and they think, oh my goodness, that means they're trying to do X, Y, Z. I have to say, I don't work with a single organisation where that is actually the case. Every organisation I work with has very, very busy people, and what they'd like to do is try and help those very, very busy people by giving them tools that will let them do their jobs a little bit quicker. The next part of it is around knowledge. It's a real challenge. We've been given these incredibly powerful business tools, but they don't come with an instruction manual. And when I see a lot of surveys, what I see is people don't feel confident about being able to use AI well in their role. They're not sure how they should be using it. So training is really important here, and that can be external training. There is lots of free training available. It can be working with a training organisation to do something more formal. And again, for me, that internal knowledge sharing becomes really important. And the other big challenge of AI adoption is time. So I'm sure many of us will know that feeling where you know you're far too busy, you know there's more work than the team can do, and you need to bring someone else in to help to do that. The challenge is that you don't have the time to do the recruitment and train the person. And AI tools can feel a little bit like that. There is a significant learning curve, and to really start to save time, you need to invest time upfront to get to grips with it and get it working well. And so if you are going to look at formalising AI adoption within your organisations, then you need to know that there needs to be time dedicated to that project to let people do the learning, let them do the experimentation. And in terms of how we approach AI adoption, this is the model we use with our charities in order to take a step-by-step approach. And the key to successful AI adoption is really starting with the why or the purpose. What is that vision for the organisation's AI use? Why do you want to adopt these AI tools? This doesn't need to be difficult. It might be. I hear different things all the time. I often hear the team's well-being, that your teams are stretched and under pressure, so you hope AI tools can help ease some of that workload. Time saving is another one. Creating greater efficiency so we can free up more of our times to directly be working on our charitable purpose. These are the sorts of things I hear a lot. As you move from informal use and that experimenting side of things, it's really good to take people on a journey. As I say, AI adoption is as much about people, in fact, more so than it is about the tech. And if you've got people who are keen to use it at the moment, bring them together, because what you don't want is, as you start to look about which AI tools you should use as an organisation, you don't want them concerned that the tools that they really like are going to be stopped being used. Instead, let them be part of that journey and let them help determine which AI tools are the right fit for your organisation. But you'll need to make sure that they've got enough knowledge to be able to do that. So you'll need to make sure they understand things like the suitable framework for what makes an AI tool appropriate for the charity. They'll need to understand those risks and issues. So, hallucination, bias, limited access to sources, and what ethical and responsible AI use looks like. Then the key to successful adoption is finding those quick wins. What's actually going to make a difference to you? So have, as a group, sit down, think about all the different ways you can use the AI tools, and then look at what will actually have most impact for the least effort. That's what makes a quick win. We use impact effort matrices to plot them out when we're doing people's AI roadmaps. And then also identify the things that might help in future. So your quick wins might be an AI tool that can help speed up writing and drafting and research. But longer term, what you actually might need is some sort of AI assistant on your website who's able to help with questions, so that you actually can offer a 24/7 service in terms of answering questions. So that chatbot might be a future project, whereas you might just want, Microsoft 365 Copilot as a source of quick wins. So once you know how you're going to use it, that's when you can get that policy in place and choose your tools. So at that stage, you've done some work, you've started to put in place those foundations, you can set out that vision and purpose for AI. You can choose suitable tools that will support those quick wins. And you might want to test out those tools with oversight, making sure you're managing risk, and you can put your AI policy in place. And then at that point, it's usually the time to share it with the wider team. You've got quick wins in place. The more skeptical amongst your team will be able to see value quickly. And then you're going to roll that out with more and more quick wins over time. It's like anything, the age-old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bit at a time. And AI adoption is like that. What you need to do is identify quick wins that you can focus on, and then you can build and build and build over time. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing it because there are potentially very significant time savings. These absolutely vary by role and vary by organisation. What I always say is, if I'm out training for the day, AI tools save me almost no time at all. Whereas if I am working at home, writing training and doing other things, I then will hopefully see several hours of time saving within a day. This is a study that was done a long time ago in AI terms, so last year, but not so long in reality. And it showed that people who at that point were regularly using AI tools, it says Gen AI, that's tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or Claude, were on average saving 1.75 hours a day. And as you can see, that's really considerable in terms of the benefits of using these tools. At the end of 2024, the government, they worked with 20,000 civil servants. They rolled out Microsoft Copilot 365, but with licenses, so the paid version, to those 20,000 civil servants across multiple government departments. They saw an average time saving of 26 minutes a day. So less than this study because we've now got everyone rather than those who are actively using AI tools. And I'm never sure when I hear the figure of 26 minutes a day, whether that sounds a lot or not. But as you multiply it up, that gives you nearly 2 weeks a year back per person, which is obviously very significant in terms of time. And certainly from my charity days, I know how busy we always were. So any time saving, which lets the team either focus on higher value work. So for example, I would always wryly smile that my time would be spent dealing with our funders and our clients, which I didn't mind, but writing up the meeting notes. Whereas if I could have freed up a couple of hours a week to look at our much longer term engagement strategy, our funding roadmap, it would have made a lot of difference to the organisation, and it would also have made a lot of difference to me. So these sorts of time differences can really help the charity by hopefully letting more time concentrate on the purpose, help with individuals, hopefully support that well-being and also support team development too. And it is a worthwhile investment, AI tools. It really is something that if you implement it, you can free up capacity to focus more on your mission and purpose. This is just one example. So if 10 employees saved an hour a day, it's like gaining an extra person over the course of the year. So again, these gains can be quite significant at organisational level, and it is what hopefully gives the case that you can make to your trustees to give your teams the time and space to experiment with the AI tools, to learn how they work, and to see how they can really start to deliver for the organisation. And if you are ready to take a more planned approach, I've just put a link on a screen which just gives a summary of our AI adoption guide. It covers very top level exactly what we've been through today. So for many organisations, many charities, they are at the point of wanting to move from that much more informal use, which is where majority of organisations are at the moment, to really planning how AI tools can start to help their team and fit into their purpose. If you are going to make that move, the best piece of advice is to really start with why you want to use AI. What are those gains? How does it link to your purpose? How does it link to what you do? And then think about involving your people, treat it as a change project, put the resource into it that it needs, and let them start experimenting with the tools under guidance so that you know you're offsetting any risks. Then think about putting in place that good governance. So that AI policy, picking your tools, using something along the lines of the suitable framework, and just thinking about if you are going to allow any personal data to be used, and if you are, reviewing it. And then get started on the journey. Identify the things that really work. Think about what are the quick wins for your organisation. There'll be some things that save you significant time, others will be time thieves. So try and focus on those will make a difference. Well,
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That was, I can say for myself, So useful, really, really insightful. Thank you so much for going through all of that, Caroline. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. There's going to be a link to both websites in the chat, so please reach out if you have any further questions, any queries, anything like that at all. We would be very happy to help. And thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.